Welcome everyone to the Youth Convention for 2021, which is running under the theme, whatever your hand findeth to do, do it with all that might. Hashtag get busy. Today, we are moderating a session. My name is Tafadzo Munati and a co-moderator is?
Paddington is my name.
Great. We are going to be interviewing Mr. Makeleni, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the second largest asset management in Zimbabwe. Welcome, Mr. Makeleni.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We are going to dive right in. May you please take us through your journey, where you were born, how you grew up, were you born again? Please just take us through your journey of your life and how you started going to work.
Okay, I was born nearly 39 years ago. Grew up in the farming areas of Msengezi in Mashonaland West. I'm an illegitimate child. My father died when I was, I think, in grade 4, but I never physically met him. So I grew up in my mother's family. I was looked after by my gogo for the earlier part of my life. Moved around Zimbabwe, all over Zimbabwe. I was in Shurugwi at one point, Kwekwe, Gweru. We lived in Chegutu, and then in Harare. I went to school first in the rural areas, and then my high school. I did my high school at Msengezi High School, up to Form 4, and then St. Francis High in Chegutu for my A-level. Straight after A-level, I joined Century Bank as a bank clerk, then moved to Kingdom Bank, where I also worked as a clerk. And then from there, I joined TriStar Insurance, but after a period of unemployment, after having been fired from Kingdom Bank for a misdemeanor that had happened at work. And then after a period of unemployment, I joined TriStar Insurance as a underwriting trainee. And then I joined TN Asset Management in 2007. I started off as a back office clerk, was then what you can say rose through the ranks to be where I am today. In terms of my being born again, I was born again, I think, when I was around Form 3. I remember Pastor Jangaja came to Warren Park then. My mom, or rather my aunt, Mrs. Mishi, who looked after us. By us, I mean me and my siblings. Right from grade 1 all the way up to where we are right now. She was fellowshipping at Warren Park, so naturally I was also a Warren Park guy. So Pastor Jangaja came, he preached a sermon that he termed, "Do not put until tomorrow what you can do today." I was so convinced then that I cannot go on without accepting Christ. I then accepted Christ. Maybe I have a unique testimony because thereafter I then backslid again. When I went to high school, I backslid, started doing what all other teenagers in the world probably do. And then during my period of unemployment, I went back to live with my mom again, with my aunt. Went to church one of these Monday prayer sessions. The word that was preached and everything that was happening there, I did not hear because I was so, within me, I felt I needed to give my life to Christ again. Pastor A.B. Moyo was leading the prayer. After that, he dismissed the church. But I felt I couldn't go home without talking to him. So I approached him and said, "Pastor, I want to give my life to Christ." He was so excited. He called, I remember then it was Elder Mswagatira came. I said, "Elder, can you please assist this brother?" So that's how I gave my life to Christ up to this day. And I think that was around 2006. April, if I'm not mistaken, the 14th.
You never backslided again.
Yeah, no, from that time, I've kept the faith. I've run my race. I've made mistakes along the way, but I believe my salvation is safe.
Quite an interesting background. So tell us about your employee journey. from where you started and you became CEO, the professional life, and how you climbed the corporate ladder. Yeah.
Okay, as I said, during our time, what used to happen is after school, that is after A-level, me and my friends would print as many CVs as we could, go into town and drop these CVs all over. So it so happened that I then joined Century Bank in Blawayo. Because I had gone to Blawayo, I had joined a microfinance institution that was called BAM Finance. And we used to rent our office, we used to use the space that was above Century Bank in Blawayo. So one of the afternoons as I was going out for lunch, I noticed that there were renovations that were taking place within the Century Bank branch. So I then perceived that because they are making these renovations, they will probably need someone, or they will soon be recruiting. I'm not sure where that came from, but I would like to explain part of, or rather most of those things is being down to the grace of the Lord. Though I was not an active Christian then, but I believe the Lord was already guiding me in a certain path. So I immediately went back to the office, printed the CV, came back to Century Bank, went to the reception and said, can I drop my CV? They took it. I didn't know whether they were going to consider it or not. But when I got home that evening, Century Bank had already called to say, can you come for an interview in the morning?
Wow,
so it was just in time.
Yeah.
I dropped my CV just in time. So I went for an interview. I then joined Century Bank, and this was straight from A-level. I did not have, I can't say I really passed my A-levels. I just crashed through A-level. So I joined Century Bank, worked for a month. I was called, a friend of mine was working for Kingdom Bank then, so he then organized that I also be invited for an interview at Kingdom Bank. So after a month, I then had to move back to Harare, joined Kingdom Bank, worked for Kingdom Bank, I think for a period of 2 to 3 years or so. And then we got naughty as a group of bank tellers. We tried to do things that we're not supposed to do, and that resulted in me being fired. I then went back onto the streets, started distributing CVs again, and then I was called for an interview at TriStar Insurance, and then I joined TriStar Insurance. But that was almost 1.5 years from my day of leaving Kingdom Bank. So while at TriStar, I remember vividly, it was just before Easter. We were supposed to go for the Easter conventions, because by then I had come back to the church. I had reaccepted Christ as my personal savior. So it was just before Easter, and as I was flipping through the newspaper, I saw a TN Asset Management advert in the paper. And I just felt I needed to drop my CV before I go for Easter. For what reason, I did not know. So I printed my CV as everyone else was rushing out, because we had a company transport that was provided as we were working out of town. So everyone else was rushing out to go and catch the bus. I said, you can go ahead, guys. I need to print a CV. I need to go into town, and then I'll join you later. And because it was a day before Easter, so we were working half day. Okay. So that was around lunchtime. I printed my CV, then got a lift into town, went to the TN Asset Management office. It was at 101 Union Avenue. I dropped my CV, and then we went for Easter. The first working day after Easter, I got a call from TN Asset Management. Can you come through and see I remember then it was Mr. Mangwiro. One thing that Mr. Mangwiro said to me when we started talking is, how did you know that we were looking for someone? And then I said, no, I didn't know. I just dropped my CV. He said, strangely, the moment you dropped your CV, we were also walking out of the boardroom after having made the decision that we needed a data capture clerk.
Wow.
So the moment I go to the receptionist then said, there's a CV that has been dropped here. I then thought that someone had tipped you. I said, look, it just so happened that at the right time, I also dropped my CV. So that was basically the interview that I had with TN Asset Management. And then they asked me, when can you join us? I said, look, I think I need to give a month's notice to Tristar Insurance. I said, okay, no, it's not a problem. Let our HR talk to your HR so that you can start next week. So I then started, I think, the 1st of May, if I'm not mistaken. But I think Easter was in April or so. So that's how I joined TN Asset Management. As a back office clerk, worked for about 3 months. After 3 months, my boss called me and said, we have decided to move you to the front office. Now, going to the front office was not something that was light to me. This was the dream of being a dealer. During our time, people that were working in treasury and were dealers, you would have arrived in terms of your professional career.
Even up to this day.
Yes. So I went into the dealing room. I was not degreed then. I was the only one who was not degreed. I was working with colleagues that some had first degree, some were studying towards their post-grad qualifications. So I'm saying all this just to show that I don't think there is anything but grace that was guiding me along the way. So in the dealing room, I started learning, making mistakes. One day I remember vividly writing a report, sending it through on email, because my immediate boss was not in office. So I thought, let me just send it to the group CEO. You will review it, and then we can then send it to the client. Because the workflow was that when you do a report, you send it to your boss, he reviews it then before you send to the client. The response that I got from my group CEO, I will never forget it. He responded on email, this is the worst report that I've ever come across. I think Ronald is doing something that is not supposed to be doing. So and so and so and so, can you please see me so that we can restructure how you have structured your department. When my boss came back, he understood because I explained to him, no, you were not there, you're not available, but the client needed this report and all. He said, okay, it's fine. So I worked in that department with my colleagues. I then decided, let me also go back to school and be degreed like some of them. But one thing that I told myself when I walked into the dealing room is, because I'm the least qualified, I'm going to try and be the most hardworking, so that I can compensate for my lack of qualification by hard work. So I then started my journey as a portfolio manager. I was then promoted to be a senior portfolio manager. And then a few years down the line, I think last year, if I'm not mistaken, around February, or the year before, last year, towards the end of January, my immediate boss, I'm sure you won't mind me mentioning his name, Courage Mashawa, called me and said, look, something funny is happening here. I'm being asked by the group to move to Stewart Bank and head Stewart Bank. So it is from that perspective then that you are probably, we need to look for someone to fill my position. We worked together on a short list, presented a short list. I was not part of that short list. Okay. Both of us were convinced that it was beyond me.
Okay.
So there were no hard feelings. We worked together on that short list. We presented that short list. But somewhere along the line, he came back and said, look, we have had a discussion with the group CEO. We think we can give you a chance. It's not going to be easy, but I believe we can do it. We have worked together for a long time. So that's how I was appointed CEO of TN Asset Management. At first, it was not easy. My boss would change his mind 3 times a month to say, I think I did not make the correct decision. And then say, okay, I think you're okay. But I think I made a wrong decision. So that was that was my story for the first 2 or so months of my tenure as the Chief Executive Officer of TN Asset Management.
You mentioned a lot of failures.
Yes.
As young people, we also have a lot of failures. How have you recovered, or how did you manage to stay afloat, considering your peers laughing at you for a report, doing something so bad. How did you manage to recover from that?
I guess one thing that I've lived by is that I do not feel entitled to anything.
Okay.
I believe you must never feel entitled to anything, to such an extent that if you fail to attain a certain level that you think you want to attain, it then crushes you.
Okay.
I've seen grace in my life. What I've tried to describe to you, there's never a time where I felt I deserved what I'm getting. I've always felt that what I have is beyond me.
Okay.
I remember, even being a bank clerk, I remember when I joined Century, the person who was training me already was almost, I think, third year or so, third part CIS. But she was a clerk. I remember going to Kingdom Bank. The guys that I would then interact with or work with as bank tellers and all, they were more experienced. They had so many years in the bank and all. So I've never felt entitled to anything. So that has helped me. When I fail, I'm failing not because of anyone, not because I don't deserve to get it, but I'm failing because I've fallen short. Number one. Number two, I've also just believed that there is always a silver lining in anything that comes your way. There is always something better beyond the current. When you fall today, there is always a better story tomorrow. I've also lived by the belief that, as you grow, as a child, or as whoever, as you grow, if you look back 3 years down the line, you will see that what was happening 3 years ago, if I would come across a similar situation, it will not be as challenging as it was then. So I want to believe that one thing that has carried me through is I don't feel entitled to anything. So if someone even says anything bad about me, the first reaction is probably his point of view and my point of view are different. So let me try and see things from their point of view before I let it crush me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Just to follow up on that, did you ever fail an examination? I know you said you became a front office person before you were degreed. So you try now to pursue your career at the same time pursuing education. Did you ever fail due to pressure from work, and how did you manage to recover from it? Because I know young people from our generation, they see you up there as the CEO, but sometimes someone just think you were someone who was very intelligent, the best student ever. Just take us through so that we get to learn.
Yes, I failed the examinations. The current degree, the degree that I did, my first degree, I think I was supposed to do it in 3 years, but I completed it in 7 years. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, it should be 7. Sometimes you wouldn't get time to go and sit for an exam, because mind you, I started my university education while I was working through visiting school at MSU.
Okay.
So would go for, was it a month? Or yeah, it was a continuous, it was 1 week every month for 3 sessions. So the first week of every month you then go to school. So sometimes because of pressure from work, you wouldn't get time off work. I sat for examinations and I failed. I always tell people that my financial accounting 1, which is the basic accounting course, I only passed it when I was just about to graduate. I carried it through the 7 years. I used to travel to Gweru, lived with Pastor Matai and Pastor Manomano. During my time in Gweru, every time I went to school. So I really failed so many examinations. Even before tertiary education, I failed examinations. I've failed a lot of times, even in my personal life and in my personal walk with God, I failed. But I think one thing that one has to tell themselves is, you can choose to take your failure as your destination, or you can just choose to take it as one of the things that happen that eventually I will have to get to my destination. So I think as young people it is important for us to understand that failure is part of life. But just as even the Bible says that a man can fall so many times, but you always have to rise up again. You always have to try and find that strength. Encourage yourself in the Lord, just as David did. Talk to people, talk to others that have gone through what you have gone through, and they've probably conquered the challenges that you went through. So failure is part of life, but it should not define you. That should not be the destination. You can be whatever you want to be. You can be better than what you are today. That is if you just put your mind and your strength into it.
Okay. Yeah.
That's quite interesting to note. Now I want to come to you being an employer. We've flipped the coin. As a young person, what kind of qualities are you looking for as an employer so that I can get employed, say, by you and become irreplaceable in your organization?
Okay. I think being God-fearing is the most fundamental. When you love your God and you have committed your life to Christ, most of these things will fall into place. But to be quite specific, I think hard work is very important. You need to be a hard-working young person. You need to have the right attitude. You need to have an attitude that I can say in Shona or in Ndebele, munhu anotumika, or umtu otumekayo. It should not be difficult for someone to give you a task, and you complete that task. Let me just explain on hard work. I think I explained to you that after 3 months, I was then promoted to go and work in the front office. And one of the things that my boss said to me as he was delivering the good news, he said, one thing that I've noticed about you is whenever I come into the office, you are always in the office. When I go home, I always leave you in the office. Okay. You need to be able to go out of your comfort zone as a young person. You need to be able to say, a task has to be done, and it has to be done. And I'm saying this because it's an attitude. It's an attitude thing. It's not something that you just think about when you are employed. You can tell when someone is easy to send or someone is easy to work with, because it's an attitude thing. It's a character thing. It's an inbuilt thing. So I think as a young person, it's important that you humble yourself. Humbleness is something that is relative, but I'm sure you can never lie to yourself. You know yourself. So humble yourself. Be a hardworking someone. Be willing to learn. Be willing to be, in quotes, to be harassed. I've worked with young people. I'm not very old, but I've worked with young people in my short journey. That when you raise your voice to them during maybe an assignment, or you give them an assignment and then they do something, you raise your voice. You will know that for the next week you can meet in the corridor, they will not greet you. That is not a good character. Okay. But you must be someone that I can raise my voice towards today, but tomorrow we can meet and you can say, good morning, Ronald, and something like that. So you need to be willing to work. You need to be willing to go out of your way to do things that you think maybe are beneath you. But in this environment that you are in, sometimes just doing those things is quite important as well. So also go to school as a young person. Attain your qualifications. Put yourself out there in the market, so that when we look at your CVs, when people look at the CVs, because your first interaction with your prospective employer is probably your CV. So make your CV as attractive as possible by attaining as much knowledge as you can.
Thank
Okay.
you. Before we continue, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back.
Welcome to our second session of our interaction with Mr. Ronald Makeleni. I'm glad that with his experience as the CEO of TN Asset Management in Zimbabwe, he's feeding into our theme. And we as the young people, we are yet to gather more knowledge from him today. Maybe as a follow-up question to where we left, I would want to ask you, what advice can you give to a young person who is educated in Zimbabwe? You're having so many challenges as young people. I'm educated, but I'm failing to land a job in any organization. What can you say to such a person? So many people now are now in a position whereby they see education qualifications are now valueless.
Yeah, that's quite true. It reminds me of Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 7, I think, where the Bible says, I've seen servants riding horses while princes are on foot.
Yeah.
It's more or less maybe our situation in the country right now. But maybe what I can say to the young person is just wait upon the Lord. Whatever your hand finds to do, do with all your might as you are waiting upon the Lord. I think opportunities should get to you while you are actively doing something. Just find something to do. I'm not a believer in specific prescriptions on what one should do. But I always say you need to just find something to do. There is no way that all of us or anyone can really sit and say, I've tried everything. As long as this world is existing, there's always something that you can try and do. So I would say, wait upon the Lord. Use your time productively. If you have an opportunity to further your education, just further your education. Right now, the new normal is now giving us an opportunity to probably attain some qualifications at a fraction of the cost that would have required in the old dispensation to say. You can now do a lot of online lessons. You can now, watch a lot of motivational videos. Just find something to do. Social media, let's use social media as much as we can to propagate a good message. I think one thing that I want to say to the young people right now is one of the matrices that employers are now using when they are selecting people, shortlisting people, they are now going through your social media pages. So ensure that your social media page is as clean as possible. Don't pollute it with unnecessary and things that are not necessary. I know someone was denied a visa to go to the Netherlands simply because of a post on her Facebook, if I'm not mistaken, wall. So find time, use your time productively. When you're online, let it not just be about TikTok, let it not just be about Instagram, for instance, but use it productively. Further education, continue to learn. I believe one day what you have attained will help you. But the fundamental thing is wait upon the Lord. It is God that gives opportunities. It is God that enables. It is God that gives ability at any given time.
Wow.
Do not be discouraged. Continue on the path that you think is your path. One day, I think things will fall into place.
I guess we have a lot of cleaning up to do on our social media because employers are going to be looking at us and the type of content that we're posting.
Yeah, quite true. Just to add, there was one particular guy who came through to work at work put through an application for a facility. Brilliant idea, brilliant facility, that he needed. It had all the components of a good business case. We did everything. We did the write-ups, the presentations, and everything. When we put it before our GCO, he recognized that name as someone who had insulted him on social media.
Okay.
And for that reason, he said we cannot work with this guy.
Even if the proposal was good enough.
Despite the fact that the proposal was good enough, but because of what he said to me
On
social media, please find someone else.
Lost opportunity.
A lost opportunity. So
Yeah.
it's very critical for young people to know that the internet does not forget. What
Yes.
you put today will probably know in 3 years' time, 7 years' time, it will still be there.
Yeah.
There will always be a digital footprint
To that.
that will point to you as a person.
Okay.
Wow.
Wow.
Please take us through your typical day. I'm curious to know, what time do you wake up? What time do you sleep? What do you do? Do you watch TV? What do you do in your typical day?
I'm one who usually wants to wake up very early. So I try and wake up as early as possible. It depends. When in winter like this, I think 5 o'clock is still early.
Okay.
But sometimes I can wake up even earlier than that. I try by all means that to make sure that the first thing that I do is to pray.
Okay.
Read the Bible, just meditate, listen to sermons, or rather just the voice podcasts, different various podcasts. And then I usually want to get into the office very early.
Okay.
I believe if you get into the office early, you will plan your day better.
Yeah.
So I try and get into the office early so that by the time everyone else is coming or phone calls are coming, I would have responded to emails that came through maybe during the night. I would have planned how to respond to inquiries that would have come through. So now we usually then have a meeting with the team just to plan the day. What are the challenges? What is it that we can do better? Planning is an everyday thing.
Yeah.
In all organizations, I believe. So it's also not unique to us. And then I try as much as possible to have a desk that is free of clutter. By that I mean you try to have a desk that is clear, because the position that I hold is not too much operational, but it is more strategic. So you try to free your desk so that you have time to think, you have time to strategize, you have time to plan for what you want to do for the company. So it's basically that, a few meetings, right now because of the virtual meetings,
Yeah.
I can tell you that the number of meetings has now really gone up. A small issue right now, people are asking for a meeting. Do you want to discuss something? Okay, let's have a Zoom meeting. Do you want to discuss? Let's have a Teams meeting.
Yeah.
So it then becomes mostly meetings. Sometimes I've now taken up golf.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
So there are days then that I find time to go onto the course and try and better my game.
Okay.
And try and better my game.
Yeah.
And then I always try to get home as early as possible. I have a young family, beautiful family. I always try and rush home to my wife and kids so that I can have a little bit of time with them as well.
Okay.
I'm one person who makes an effort to look at how they've done their homework, just to see if they are on the right path and all. Though I admit my wife does most of that, but I also try and make an effort to do that from time to time.
Good.
So I always try to get home early. Before we really got virtual in terms of doing everything online, I would stay late in the office because my boss is a kind of a working late kind of guy. But right now I can still work late even at home. So in terms of when I then go to bed, sometimes I go to bed in the morning As long as there's something to do, that's what I believe. I believe that as long as there's something to do, you just have to do it.
Okay.
Sleep can come. You know, we have been sleeping every day.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So I always tell myself that if I can't sleep today, I'll probably be able to sleep tomorrow. So let me just get this assignment out of the way. I watch TV.
Okay.
I watch Scandal. I know that Region City it was recently decommissioned by the ETV.
Okay.
I'm still trying to get around the new not House of Zwide or
House
something,
of
but
Zwide,
I still can't
that's the new
understand it.
one, yeah.
But I
Okay.
watch TV. I watch a lot of sports.
Okay.
I'm an Arsenal supporter.
Okay.
When Arsenal is playing, it doesn't matter whether I have an exam tomorrow. I will first have to watch the game.
That game.
That's
And
bad.
then put in a lot of hours thereafter. Because what I found is, if my team is playing and I'm trying to start,
It's not working.
for that 1.5 hours, I can tell you nothing.
You can't
I really can't understand anything that I'm studying. So I watch a lot of soccer when I get time. But ever since Dr. Chirisa came and spoke to us as young
Okay.
people,
Last
where
Gen
he
Con,
discouraged
yeah.
us from watching 1.5 hours of soccer. I've also now been trying to watch the highlights and all, but it's quite difficult. It's quite difficult. So what I've done, I don't watch every game, but I watch when Arsenal is playing.
Okay.
So that's my typical day. From time to time, I have a small project that I'm running in terms of farming. So weekends, I probably go out into to the plot. It's something that is just starting. Spend my day there. But what I've taught myself and what I want to also encourage the young people is, you must always have something that is running in terms of projects. It takes you away from a lot of things. There should always be a demand on your time. You must try and not have too much idle time.
Okay.
You should always have demand on your time. So that's what I try to do. I try to always make sure that I'm busy from time to time.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I see it's a busy schedule, and sometimes it then becomes easy to relate with what you want to gather as the young people. Have you ever had challenges in your personal life, in your career as the CEO? How did you manage to overcome on all those challenges? Because I know for certain there's a lot of workload upon you, and how do you manage to overcome and to pull through? Yeah.
Yes, challenges will always come. As a young person, I'm sure you have challenges, but I can assure you that the moment you get married, you have a family, you have an extended family, you have a career, you have children, there are also challenges that are waiting for you. So challenges will always come. I'm an optimist. I'm an optimist through and through.
Okay.
When I get into a challenge, I always believe that there's a way out.
Okay.
I always believe that eventually
There's a way
this will
out.
pass.
Okay.
So that's how I've always taken challenges. I've also always sought help from others.
Okay.
I also believe in prayer, honest and fervent prayer to God. When I'm really challenged and I go into the closet, I always say even to my wife, I always tell my wife that there are prayers that I want to make, and if I want to make certain prayers, I want you out of the room. Because
Okay.
I want to talk to my God. I don't want to leave anything out. It's like I always take that exercises when you are bathing. When you are bathing full body, you remove all your clothes and you
Okay.
go into the shower. Sometimes that's what I do. When I'm really challenged, I go into the closet. I get angry with God. I tell God my disappointments. I tell God what I think He should have done for me.
Okay.
And most of the times, before I leave, He would have shown me, He would have corrected me somehow.
Okay.
Because He's a faithful and fair God.
Okay.
But I believe prayer is one thing that can help everyone get through whatever challenge
Okay.
you encounter in your life.
Okay.
People always give you advice. People can give you advice. You can get help from Tafatspa. I can get help from Newport. But prayer is one thing that can help you more than anything in the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
That's quite interesting, especially hearing it from a CEO who's referring to prayer.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
so deep and so
Yeah,
profound.
Yeah.
That then brings me to this question. How do you measure success? What is success for you? Was success for you when you bought your first car? Or when you bought the one you're driving now? Is success money? How do you define success?
I think success is progressive. Success is more than material things. To me, success is being able to make a difference in someone's life. If my boss calls me and gives me an assignment, and then I execute that assignment, go back to him, and I see him smiling or he's happy, I believe I've been successful.
Great.
Because I've taken a burden off him that probably he wouldn't know how to handle. So I think success is being able to make a difference in someone's life. I feel so much satisfaction when I go to bed, knowing that someone has been helped by my little effort. I've made someone's life better by what I have done, and I consider that to be success.
Okay.
I will not lie and say material blessings are not success, but I believe success is more than that, which is the reason why even those that are billionaires continue to wake up every morning and go into the office. The reason why probably someone like Bill Gates continues to go into the office every morning is not necessarily because he thinks if he stops, he will then starve. But I'm sure he thinks about the person who's working for Microsoft. He thinks about the downstream industry that is benefiting from Microsoft. And then he says, if I stop this, probably all that will go to waste. So I think success is about you making a difference in someone's life, a positive difference that is in someone's life.
Maybe just as a follow-up question to that, can we relate your success to your contribution to the church? Or have you ever contributed something meaningful to the church, and now you seated there as the CEO, at the back of your mind you tell yourself, because I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, God has rewarded me in this way?
Yeah, there's always a temptation to think like that, but you must always remember that an opportunity that you got to serve in the church, someone could have done it better. Or even if you were not there. You know, the Bible says, God says, I think Jesus says, if you are not going to worship me, I can even make the rocks to rise up and worship me. So it is never about you as an individual. What you have managed to do, or the little that God has allowed whoever, or the God has allowed me to do in the church, it's not because God was short of people to do it.
Okay.
You could have done it through anyone.
Okay.
So I don't think there is that correlation in totality.
Okay.
But what I believe is, when you give yourself faithfully to the work of God, and you work for God, God will reward you.
Okay.
He will not reward you. It's not a linear equation to say 1 + 1 is equal to 2. But God works in his own mysterious ways. So my success has always been down to grace.
Okay.
There's always a space in my life that I cannot explain, if you ask me. So I always pick up the word grace and slot it into that space.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. I remember when I went back to my in-laws to pay my dues, after my pastor then, Pastor Sehlako, had preached to say, "Can I pay that credit?" So I then decided, let me go back to my in-laws and do what I'm supposed to do. I remember after that, my mother-in-law said, "I want to pray for you." And as she was praying, she mentioned that, Mwari, one day I want him to be a CEO.
Okay.
I had my friend Innocent. We almost laughed. because I knew I was working for TN Asset Management. My immediate boss was Courage Mashabavi, as I mentioned earlier. He was the CEO then. He had no intention of going anywhere. We knew because we used to talk. So I knew he had no intention of going anywhere. So in my mind, I said, the only way that I'm going to be CEO, Courage is to die or something. Because as far as I know, he's young, just like me. He's only, I think, about 2 or so years older than me. So we're going to be together for a very long time. And I was content to be with him for the duration of the time. But as I've explained, a few, I don't know if it's months down the line, he then calls me and says, this is what the bosses are saying. So that you can never explain that. You can never, and we drew a short list that both him and me agreed that my name is not fit to be on that short list. So
Amazing.
to answer your question directly, yes, I believe that when you work for God, God is faithful. God is so faithful, He will always reward those who diligently seek Him. But that must never be the motivation. The motivation to work for God must be down to the fact that I love this God. He has already done so much for us. He died on the cross for us. He has prepared a place for my afterlife. So He has already done so much for us, for me. He does not need to do anything for me right now for me to be able to maybe love Him more. So, yes, I've tried to do my part in the church. Things that I'm proud of, or things that I remember, I was part of the youth leadership. Local, I think I went to the quarterlies. At one time, I was a quarterly chairman.
Wow.
And let me share this. I hope I'm not taking too much of your time. When I was voted quarterly chairman in Mfakos, I remember that quarterly we were in Mfakos. I always tell people that I think I'm one of the only people that voted for themselves in that. I voted for myself. Yes. Because I believed I could do it. I believed I was the right person.
You wanted to do it.
I really wanted to be chairman. So I then, from there, I right now I'm serving as a deacon in the church. I was involved in the planning of the 40th anniversary that took place in Blawayo. It was a lot of work. I was also involved in the planning of the 50th anniversary that took place in Gweru. I've also been involved in the planning of national conventions, regional conventions, quarterly meetings. I've also done my part at local level in terms of being a deacon and being in the administrative board at local level. From Warren Park, I moved to Krembon. Right now, I'm fellowshipping in Westgate. I've also done my part. So those are the things that I think I've also done for the church, though I think it's just a fraction of what I should do for the church.
These are really a lot of important points that you're pointing out. And one thing that I'm really taking away is, as a young person, I need to do my part. So what are you doing as a young person in your life? Are you doing your part, or are you staying away? Can we not find you anyway? Young people, please, let's take this time to think about what are you going to do so that you can play your part. Are you going to vote for yourself in believing what you do? Or are you going to take up arms and work in the house of the Lord? We'll be right back after this.
Welcome to our third section of our interaction with Mr. Ronald R.Makeleni, the CEO of TN Asset Management. We are glad you are seated here and is giving us important nuggets which are feeding into our theme. You can see our background, which is encouraging us to work and to get busy as the young people. So as we continue, I would like to ask you, today they say it's more about who you know, not about what you know. What advice do you have for the young people? I remember myself, I was once listening to an interview about one successful entrepreneur in Zimbabwe, and he was saying that it's very difficult for you to to climb up the ladder alone. But at some point in time in life, you need to meet someone, and that connection will take you up there. So is it about what you know, or is it about who you know for you to go up there?
Yes, I think networks are very critical.
Okay.
And young people must work to build these networks.
Okay.
You see, I've encouraged young people to get educated, attain as much qualification as possible, but that is what you know. But it's also critical then to create networks that will help you to go up the ladder. It's quite true. You always need someone. You cannot exist as an island. There is no brilliance that can maybe render everyone else redundant in your life. You always need someone. And I think one critical aspect or one way of building networks is to be available.
Okay.
Okay.
As a young person, be available. Don't be someone who's so difficult to get. When there's a meeting, when there's a social gathering, a quarterly meeting that has been organized, as a young person, let it be almost impossible for you not to attend, for you do not know who you meet in that meeting. As a young person, when within your community there's maybe a social call for a social cleanup campaign or something, just go and attend. When you hear that there's a charity event happening somewhere, we need volunteers, just go there and be a volunteer. You never know who you meet.
Okay.
Do not be too stingy with your time as a young person. But just make sure that you are attending the right gatherings. Don't be very careful of the gatherings that you are attending. So I would say, as a young person, right now there's social media, as I said. Please keep your social media clean. Go on to the social media platforms like your LinkedIn and all those. Follow people that matter. There's no harm in flattery from time to time. When you see someone that you think is influential or has posted something, just comment. Throw in a nice comment. Just to show him that you are always probably reading what he or she is doing, something like that.
Especially on Twitter, yeah.
Yes, and be available. I think the most important thing for you to build these networks is be available. As I said, don't think that something is beyond you or beneath you. When someone asks you to do something, just do it. You never know. You never know.
Okay.
So when you are asked to go and look for those donkeys, sometimes just go. You might just build a relationship that will help you in future.
Okay.
Great.
Wow.
These are such important lessons that you give us. Be available. We are never available.
Yeah.
We don't even know where to be available,
No.
if I should say, if we
Which
should
place
start.
to be, yeah.
Yes, but anyway, just as a CEO, I just want to know, how have you been dealing with external factors of change? I mean, there is now the new normal.
Yes.
How can we as young people learn from the new normal, and how can we adjust to the new normal?
I think during a storm, the branches that bend with the winds survive.
Okay.
But the branches that resist the winds find themselves off the tree.
Okay.
So I believe that's how you deal with external forces. You try and ride those. I'm not saying compromise your Christianity or compromise your belief, but I'm saying as a branch, when the wind is coming, just bend with it. You remain a branch, but you are bending with the wind. You don't change from being a branch, but you are doing so that you survive on the tree that you are on, which is the gospel of Jesus Christ. The new normal, young people find time to be productive, even on online. Do not spend too much time watching TV. Do not spend too much time on social media. That is, your Instagrams, your TikToks. We are just watching someone just being funny almost the whole day. Use that time to learn new things. Listen to people of substance. When you buy a bundle, don't exhaust the bundle before you have listened to a sermon or two. When you buy a bundle, don't exhaust a bundle before you have read a book or two. Read books. Enroll to online courses. If you are a dressmaker, there are new trends and new techniques of dressmaking. Go onto YouTube and learn about those, so that when you sit on your machine, you have learned something new. Let me continue to emphasize this. Don't pollute your social media page by posting, things that you will be ashamed of tomorrow. That is the new normal. It's now cheaper to learn than it was before.
Yes,
You can get knowledge in the split of a second because of social media. Avoid too much TV. Avoid watching, too much soccer. But try and be productive. When you are at home, because we are now spending most of our time at home, find family time. Improve the quality of time that you have with your family. Talk to your dad, talk to your mom, talk to your siblings. Don't fight. Avoid fights. Because the moment you fight and you are closed indoors, it's a challenge. Don't fight with your siblings. Don't fight with the dad. Don't fight with your parents. Listen to them. I think that is to me one of the things, or rather some of the things that you can do to adapt to the new normal.
Wow.
Embrace social media. Embrace the digital world, because that is the future.
Okay, quite informative. I'll just follow your journey from being a clerk to become CEO, and I realized that you highlighted that you ended up managing some big portfolios during your career path, and now there's the fourth industrial revolution trajectory which is being pushed. Now you're an investment analyst. Do you believe in investments? If you were to advise a young person about investment, what can you tell a young person? Do you believe it yourself? Yeah.
Yes, I do. I believe you cannot be wealthy without investments. Money does not grow on trees. Money comes out of investment. Even as you are going to work, you are investing your time and you're getting a return. So I believe in investment. So to the young person, I would say, invest your time in the things of the Lord. I think that is the cheapest investment that we can give. Everyone can give that. So as a young person, please make sure that you find your space within the body of Christ, and you invest your time. And then coming to the practical investments that I think you are talking about. Young people come together and form investment clubs. That is the way to go. Because when I speak to young people, they always tell me, what is it that you want us to invest when we do not have anything to invest? But I always say, right now I think the cheapest, a 15 gig data bundle, Econet at least, I think it's now costing around $3,200 if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe other networks are cheaper. But all I'm saying is you can sacrifice that. Come together, 10 of you, put up maybe $5 each, you have $50. You give one of you that $50 and say, look, just find something to do. You can go to the stock market right now. You can trade on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. You can trade on the London Stock Exchange. You can trade on the Joburg Stock Exchange from your phone, online. That is quite possible. So all I'm saying is, as a young person, start now. Don't wait until you have money or rather until you have more to say, now I can start saving. An investment is a saving. Warren Buffett said at one point, you must not spend, you must not save what you are left with after spending.
Okay.
Rather, you must spend what remains after you have saved. So the first thing when you get something, you must look at what portion of this am I saving? And then your spending is then determined by what is left thereafter. So the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange is open to all of us as the young people to really get into it and make a lot of money. It's easy. You can go onto the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange website and you open an account there. You find a broker that can help you, or you find an advisor that can help you, and then you can start saving. All of us have rural areas. Before you leave, just leave go with a $10 note and say, go, just get me some road runner or some sort. Every time you do that, you realize that by the time maybe you get to the end of the year, you go back there, maybe you're 14 of those out of the first one that you just bought. So young people, when you get whatever you get, your mindset must always tell you that before I spend, how much of this can I put aside so that my future is made better. Yeah.
I see that this investment topic is definitely going to need another whole day and a session on its own. I hope we'll be able to get you again to share those nuggets with us. Our final question to you today is, what advice would you give your 14-year-old self? You've walked the journey, and now when you look back, what sort of life choices do you wish you had made differently that would have enabled you either to get to your position earlier, so that we can learn and take a shorter route by not also making mistakes that you've made?
Okay, I would say, I think the first thing, give your life to Christ early. Okay. I wish I'd given my life to Christ early. I wish I'd listened to my parents more. By my parents, I mean whoever was older than me. My pastors, my aunts, my uncles. I wish I'd listened to them more. Because sometimes they would say something and I would dismiss it. But now when I look back, I wish I'd listened to them more. I also wish I'd taken my schooling more seriously. By the grace of God, even after failing, by the way, at one point I was expelled from school when I was doing my Form 4.
No.
By the grace of God, even after all those things that happened, God has still managed to create a path for me that I'm walking. But when I look back, I wish I hadn't done the things that I do. I wish I'd listened to my parents. I wish I'd listened to my pastor. I wish I had accepted Christ earlier. And I wish I had really done much, much more than I did as a young person for Christ. Because right now, when I look at the young people, the zeal that I had, if I had this opportunity, why don't we do it this way? So those are some of the regrets that I have. But overall, I thank God for His faithfulness, for His grace. Because despite the many mistakes that I made, He always made sure that I was provided for.
Okay. Maybe before Tafazo concludes, what advice do you have? Not question-based, but any words of wisdom that you want to throw to a young person who's seated out there so that he can take home at the end of the day?
There's a scripture that is burning in my heart these days. It's in 2 Samuel, it's in 1 Samuel, where Saul is going after the donkeys that I was talking about. Okay. He's then anointed, and he's then told by Samuel that as you are going along your way, you are going to meet 3 men. And these 3 men will be carrying, one will be carrying a goat, a kid, I don't want to call it a kid because it then belittles the effort. But let me just say a goat. One will be carrying a bottle of wine, and the other one will be carrying 2 loaves of Jewish bread. What that scripture tells me, and I want to say this to the young people, is do your part in the house of the Lord, in the church, in your home, and in your country. The person that was carrying a goat was walking with someone who was carrying a bottle of wine, and he was not complaining, and they were in harmony. If they were not in harmony, they wouldn't have walked together. So what it tells me is, whatever burden is put upon your life, carry that burden with grace, without complaining, without looking at, but what is Party doing, or what is Tafazo doing? Just carry your God with grace, and the Lord God Almighty will sustain you. Because why is that important? Because where we are going, the goat will be needed, the bottle of wine will be needed, and the 2 loaves of bread will be needed. So just do your part as a young person.
That was so profound. The conversation that we had today was so beneficial to us. Thank you very much, Mr. Makeleni, for joining us today. And to the young people out there, let us ensure that we are hardworking. Let us ensure that we are keeping our social media clean. Let us ensure that we are living in harmony with everyone, as we were taught today. And let us, at the end of the day, make sure that we have something to do. Let us get busy. And at the end of the day, make sure that whatever your hand findeth to do, do it with all thy might. Have a good day. Thank you.